In this video, we're gonna tear apart the GTR headlights and break down all the individual components so that you can do whatever you want with them. Yo, I'm Chris and you're at FlyRyde, where I build custom lights. I show you what parts I use, how I install them, and why I chose those parts in the first place. So we're gonna dive back into the GTR series. This is gonna be the next few days. So bear with me. If you don't have a GTR and you're not into that, the next few videos are gonna show you how I've specialized in one type of car. So right now, let's just dive back into the GTR series and we'll talk more at the end. This is a beautiful 2017 GTR and I wanna show this bumper coming off, then the headlights coming off, all in a series. So if you missed the last video, it shows you how to get to this step. So I will link that up right here. You can watch it later. Right now, we're just gonna pull the headlights. This is the absolute best tool in the world that you could use for this. It's dope, I love it, and I'm gonna use it to quickly tear these lights off the car. The only step that's gonna require any sort of like muscling or anything is the actual headlight connector. They're very stiff tabs on that to release it. So I'll show you what that looks like. You should definitely use an extension for this part because there's 3 bolts going that way and 2 bolts going that way. So this guy's not gonna cut it. It's great for the top, but the side ones will need to get a little bit more reach. So here's what you should have after you pull the ones that are going in from the side. This one for the fender, you'll want to keep that separate from the rest so you don't mix it up. These guys are definitely easy to forget about, but they're gonna hold the bumper into place when you put everything back on, so don't lose these. There's gonna be 2 little screws on the back that hold in this hood release cable. So we're gonna wanna just remove those 2 to give us the slack that we need, and then we're gonna unplug the actual main electrical connector. Wanna scoot the whole thing forward, and then we wanna clear this section so that we can actually lift it up and out. Just like that. Just gonna add an extension to this drill, make it a lot easier and faster to get in there. These little screws are gonna wanna fall out and get lost somewhere in there. If you can grab them, do it. Otherwise, you can just hunt for them after. You need more slack on that connector right there. So what I'm gonna do, let's see if I can keep it in camera. I'm gonna just take the wires right here and pull them slightly away, which will release the little locking clip that it slides into. And now we can turn it over and we see the tab right there. Okay, so you should have your headlight. You should have 6 of these gray screws and then the 1 fender screw bolt. They're all 10mm. And your main bumper stay bracket thing. Here's one other little trick I like to do. We just want to get that thing free from that wire loom, so I'm just gonna rip on it right now. Okay, so we got all our bolts, brackets, everything good to go. And let me show you, this was that one little thing that I was making a joke about yanking on. It's literally just 2 little pieces of tape that hold in the little plastic T on the back of the headlight. So this right here, that is what was just wrapped in tape on either side. Next step does not require there to be a car in my way, so I'm gonna move it out. And then we're gonna stick these headlights in the oven. It wasn't just about pulling them off the car, we do want to actually open them up. So the video will continue and you will do scary stuff with your headlights. But only if you're very, very careful using a home oven or a heat gun. You don't wanna do something like this and then mess up your headlights as a result of just trying to rush through it. So get ready. If you don't wanna go further, just stop now. Now you know how to take the headlights off the car. Maybe you can use it to replace them with some aftermarket ones instead of trying to modify yours. But if you're a shop or you're a guy who's just DIY friendly and you've got a GTR, this is for you. This step is way easier for me because I have a very large oven. GTR headlights are big, so you're gonna wanna do this very carefully if you're just using a home oven. I don't really say this too often, but I actually recommend a heat gun over a regular oven like this. What I'm gonna do right now is the right way, the safe way. I'm gonna use this big monster and I'm gonna show you what I put inside of it to keep the light safe. Inside the oven, I just have a 2x4. This thing's been cooking for a while, so it's really warm right now, but it's not gonna be anything that heats up to the point where it can mess up the plastic on the headlight. So you wanna use a very simple 2x4 instead of ever sticking it on the metal rack, and you never want it to touch any of the walls. These headlights are big, but this oven is huge, so it's gonna work out fine here. At home, you might have to wedge them and angle them very, very carefully to get them to fit in a regular size oven. Okay, I am gonna pull the screws out of the back. There's 5 of them. One at the very top corner, and then throughout the whole light, the perimeter of it has other screws. And I'm not gonna reuse these screws because I wanna have enough bite inside the plastic lens with something bigger. So I'll show you the difference. That's what I just took out. And that's what I'm going to use to replace it. So it's a very slight difference, but the extra thread on this and the size of it is going to keep it to where the holes don't strip out like they would if I reused this factory one. Now the reason that it's going to be that important that it cinches down into the plastic is because we're going to add a bunch of extra sealant to these to make sure that they're watertight. Now the last step is going to be unique to the GTR headlights, these 2015 and up, because they have a lightning bolt inside of them. Now there's an electrical connection that you can access through the back of the light, but you have to know that there's another component that you can't see that's hidden, buried down inside the headlight that you can only get to once you've opened them up and then fully removed the projector. So if you think that you can just hack the wiring and turn on the lightning bolt by some other means, you can't, because you'll be bypassing that driver, which will send too much power to the LEDs and it will burn out the bolt. The last guy that did that had to pay $700 to have it fixed. I think he'd rather have kept that $700 and put it into something cooler. Here's our cap, and then inside we've got a little connector. All we want to do is that. Just want to unplug it, and then we can even put the cap back on. Okay, it's ready for the oven. Actually, it's almost ready for the oven. I did notice that there was quite a bit of bug guts on there, so I'm going to wipe that off first. So I can tell that there's nothing that's going to touch on this side. There's nothing that's going to touch way in the back, because I've moved it around. I've made sure it's clear of anything. If it seems like it's just not moving because maybe it's wedged up against something, you really got to be careful and look underneath it as well. Just make sure that that thing is totally safe, and then we're going to heat it for 5 minutes at 220 degrees. So it looks like the oven dropped to about 200. It's going to get back up to 220 by the time this thing is done, and then we're going to check it. Then we're going to cook it for another 3 minutes after that, just to make sure all that sealant is nice and soft and easy to work with. Okay, timer went off at 5, and all I want to do is check, make sure nothing has moved around. I'm feeling the tabs. They're still very stiff, which means they haven't had enough time in the oven. This top tab, it's definitely really stiff too. So we're gonna give them that extra 3 minutes, and then they'll be ready to come out and get taken apart. Here's another thing that I'm using. It's just a very thin, simple mat with no debris on it, nothing that can mess up the lens if I put the lens face down on these. I won't though. I'm just gonna be working on these things as is with my hands. So I'm gonna put on some gloves, which will soon be Gorilla Gloves, but I don't have them yet. So they're just normal U-line. Just kind of boring. But I'm gonna put some new latex covers on them so that I can get rid of that latex once the sticky stuff gets on it. Okay, time to stop talking and go. Three tabs. 2 on the bottom, 1 on this top side. I grab it with one hand here, one hand there, and just pull. And this is actually going to require some muscle, so you see it's just starting to come apart. And then the next, I'm going to do the same thing right here. Okay, and then now that we've got those two open, I'm going to give it a little bit more. You're going to want to have something to catch any of the little glue. So a tool like this is going to be good. Alright, so we've got our tab here, here, and here lifted. Then I started on this corner, pulled it apart, moved over to this corner, pulled it apart, and now we're at the point where I want to open up this gap a little bit more right up on top along here. And now that I've done that, I just want to slide this whole lens forward away from the body. So I'm going to plant my hand here, plant this hand here, and I'm going to pull towards me. So now we've created a gap up top. You don't have to open it from the top. You just want to make sure that it's enough to clear, which it is. So you flip it back upside down now, and now we're going to use this tool specifically to catch all the little glue strands so they don't hit any of the chrome, especially on that corner right there.
Got our flasher stuff.
Yay! That is great news. Alright, now we just have to make sure that we've cleared the little upper turn signal lens right here. A lot of this stuff likes to get caught underneath it, and then continue to catch those glue strands. Alrighty. So, the most important part, we can't let anything ever touch any of this. Now, I'm not going to refinish any of these parts. These are all going to go back together in the exact configuration and look that they are now. So instead of me handling these things with my bare hands, I'm actually going to take these gloves off, put on other latex gloves, and then I'll take everything out from inside. So, super important, make sure that your surface here is nice and clean and free of anything that could potentially mess up the lens, like any little screws or bolts. You don't want this thing sitting this way for very long. We're going to remove 2 screws right here. That will release the lower high beam shroud. It has a tab right here, and then these 2 little mounts that keep it into place. So you might have to mess with the top mount, or it might just be able to wiggle out like that without anything. Now this I recommend you put inside of a bin so that nothing can touch it, nothing can get on that really clear piece of plastic, because if anything does, you cannot clean it. There's nothing that will leave no evidence behind. It will have streaks and scratches no matter what, and when the light hits it from behind, you'll see those really well. These things are awesome. They cost $1 at Home Depot or Walmart. They're the perfect size to keep all of the dust and anything that you don't want to touch for this part. Also, when you handle this thing, hold it from anything that cannot be seen from the front. Last screw is right here. And now this is extremely important for what I'm doing right now. Since this will not be painted later, I need to make sure that there's no glue that can touch it as I lift it out, because however it looks when it comes out, that's going to be how it looks when it goes right back in. So it needs to be perfect. So all this glue that's kind of hanging over that way, I'm just peeling it back over this way so it doesn't come into contact with this chrome bezel. Kind of hate that word, bezel. Okay, there are 2 little tabs right up here on top, and you're going to want to get your finger or something under them, not a tool with a bunch of glue on it. You can use something else. I have a little plastic pry tool I can use right here, but I don't want to get any, I don't want to pry on it where it's visible, just on these very edge right here. Now I'm going to lift from one of these tabs at the bottom. I'm going to make sure that it's not getting pinched or squeezing anywhere else down here. And so that seems like a really good safe place to grab it by. Same thing like the other lens, this plastic lens right here, anything touches it, you are basically just asking for streak marks forever. So I don't want any dust to collect, so I want to take this and lightly put it back on the actual headlight before much time passes. I don't want this thing to be on too tight, but I also don't want any dust to get in the lens or inside the housing. So we're going to set this aside for now. This part's kind of sketchy because we have to take screws out. We have to really handle this thing gently. Let me first take out these factory LEDs. Alright, now the LED wire is held in place by that little clear piece, so as you're taking it off, you want to be careful and make sure that you have both sides so that something doesn't dangle and smack the chrome. So these we are done with forever. These are your factory lightning bolt LEDs. You just don't need them. You should send them to me, or I don't know, maybe somebody will burn them out and you can sell them to that guy. Okay, so we got our screws removed and set to the side. Now everything else is just clips. So we have this mount right here is completely free. This one is slid underneath that little tab. And then we have 3 more right here. So I'm going to use this little pry tool, and this can fall. So if you don't want to have this thing hit the ground, you can pinch the very edge of it at the top with one hand while trying not to push on anything on the front that can smudge it. So we're just going to pop that guy out, and this, and now we go back down to this corner. That's going to be what holds it into place the most. And so at this point, it should lift right off. And just like the other pieces, everything that we're doing right now, trying to be like ninjas. Don't let anybody know that we were in here, leave any evidence, any marks. Just hold everything by the edge. I have special little plastic containers for these as well. I'll get it right now. They're a lot more expensive than $1, but they save my butt because I work with these things all the time. So you can also pick these things up at Walmart. Nice, thin, easy to keep out of your way. If you're going to be doing these lights very often, definitely grab a few of these. Alright, last step before the circuit board goes in, we are going to remove the lightning bolt. So you've got multiple little plastic clips that you have to push down on. You can also use a tool like this to help. In my case, I should be okay using just my fingernails. Let's see how I do. And as you work, keep in mind, every single edge that you touch will leave prints behind if you don't have gloves on, and even if you do, you can leave little smudges as you go. So be careful, or you can do all this stuff and then just you can paint it after the fact. You can also just paint these things while they're fully disassembled, and then when you're handling them later, the paint is not nearly as troublesome as the chrome. Alright, so we got this tab. That tab is the last one. And now we're going to lift it off. As you're lifting up on this, it's putting different pressure on the remaining tabs that are still in, so they might fight you a little bit, just like that one did for me. Okay, this guy's off. Set him safely to the side. Now these are what your original LEDs used to give you that lightning bolt look. You had one LED up at the top, shining light down and over, and then another LED right here, aiming light across and down. Those are coming out. This tab can get a little bit tricky as well. And you don't want to force anything. You don't want to break these if, like, you just don't want to break them. That's pretty simple. So you can go at it from the back side and use a little pry tool or whatever to just push it the rest of the way through. Now it lifted out. And I will say too, this corner does want to sit really wedged in there, so just be careful, take your time. Now if you want to go with a more advanced install, you can actually retain these things, but everything's not going to sit as pretty as it will if you remove them. I use these things, I changed the factory LED to a color changing LED, and that gives us the cool color changing lightning bolt, as well as all the other features that are built into the circuit board.
Oh, such a long video just to show you how to open up some headlights, but man, it's so important, and this is what I want to talk to anybody who actually watched that whole thing. Number one, if you're a GTR owner and you really learned a bunch of stuff through that process, comment below on just what you thought about it. Did it look too much? Did it look like something that was kind of easy, just a lot of tedious little steps? Let me get your take on it. Anybody else who actually watched that whole video, like, you're awesome for wanting to educate yourself this much and just gather in all that information. This style of video, the way that I did this one, is very much how I'm putting my online course material together. It's not fluffy, it's not a bunch of extra, it's step-by-step instructions, me talking you through it, and I really want the end goal to be learning. I want people to actually see all the stuff that is to it. I don't want to entertain you if you're spending all sorts of money on learning about this stuff. I want you learning, right? So tell me what you think about this. I know this is not my typical style of video, and that's fine, because this is about something that I'm building, a little library, a collection of how-tos that's gonna live forever on the internet, showing and helping people how to do this kind of stuff. I don't expect it to get a bunch of views and thumbs up and all that, but if you did watch this far, you're not subscribed already, you haven't done anything on the channel and you just found this, give me a little thumbs up on this video and subscribe to the channel so you can learn more. I promise it's not gonna be this dry on the upcoming stuff like next week, but this, hey, this is all about learning. So just a gift from me to you. I hope it helps. I hope if you have a GTR or customers with GTRs that you had 20 minutes with nothing better to do than to just learn how to do all those little steps here at FlyRyde. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys on the next part of this series. It's gonna go a couple more, and then we'll jump into some more exciting stuff for everybody else. All right, later guys.